Today I'm talking about one of the religions and occult practices that the Occult Crime Unit of South Africa investigates. And today I am dealing with Satanism. Now, not all Satanists are criminals and not all of them commit crimes. But in this video, I'm going to be talking about those that do. So what is Satanism? Satanism is a religion and it is the worship of the person in the Bible known as Lucifer or Satan. And the philosophy around Satanists is that they want to live their life on having maximum pleasure. This includes things such as sexual pleasure, sexual gratification, as well as they have a need for extreme wealth and power. And a lot of their rituals are in fact designed to help give them this. Satanists often want to achieve high levels of pleasure without any moral regard for what's going to happen or the consequences. And their practices often include drinking blood, lighting candle. There's often some sort of altar involved, as well as an animal or a human sacrifice. Now, I'm going to talk about the different types of Satanists. So you've got the religious Satanists, and that is the people who formerly have joined a satanic church or temple. And one such example is Anton LaVey. He's a very famous and well-known Satanist, and he says that the members of his church, they follow the rules. They don't break laws. They are not responsible for the destruction of the human body in a physical sense, but they will rather encourage it through the use of hexes and curses. And there is no physical acts involved. The second group I'm going to talk about is probably the most terrifying, and that is the intergenerational Satanists. And these are a group of highly organized, well-financed. They're often very prominent figures in the community. And it's also a very secretive cult. And it is across the world. It is not just in South Africa, it is globally. And they are responsible for perpetrating a large variety of the crimes that the occult unit investigates, such as animal sacrifices, human sacrifices, SA. You guys know what SA means. I can't say it for YouTube, on children. And they do very horrific things that I will get into later in this video. Their belief has normally been in the family for generations and generations. And their goal is to encourage the belief onto their children, as well as recruit more new members into the cult. And this often involves ritualistic essay of children, marrying them off to Satan. And there have also been cases reported where they will actually impregnate women and then force an abortion and then consume the fetus as a form of cannibalism. This is really gross stuff, and it is part of the record. These all come from published papers from academia. So this is part of the academic record that these things are in fact happening. Another group is the self-styled Satanist. These are normally criminals that commit crime for other reasons, but perhaps when they are caught or as a possible motive, they blame it on Satanism. But they're not actually practicing Satanists. They don't do a lot of the things that Satanists do, which is drink blood, which is have an altar built and sacrifice things. They normally kill for other reasons. And one such example is serial killer Richard Ramirez, otherwise known as the Night Stalker. Richard Ramirez used to spray five-pointed stars, on his crime scenes as a way of, trying to make a crime look as though it was motivated satanically, where we know from the history that Richard Ramirez had other reasons why he wanted to commit these crimes. Another example that I can think of is Mornay Haramsa, and I'll be releasing a video on him when he came from Krugersdorp, and in 2008 he took a katana to school and he put on a Slipknot mask, and then he killed someone. So that is another example I can think of who would probably fit into that category. Now, the last category that I want to talk about is the youth subculture category. And these are normally teenagers that get introduced to Satanism through music, through TV shows, through perhaps rap or friends. And they perhaps dabble a little bit in it, but they don't fully practice things such as the drinking of blood or the ritualistic sacrifice of animals. These teenagers are often involved in other crimes such as vandalism, grave desecration, arson, and stuff like that. It's kind of rebellious teenage sort of stuff. Now, I'm quickly going to talk about the hierarchy of how Satanists are involved. So, Satanists are usually very prominent figures in the community, and they are arranged in circles. And each circle will have a high priest or a high priestess. And sometimes if you want to gain a higher rank, then you have to do a ritual murder. Now, there are different sects within Satanism, and the first one I'm going to talk about is the Brotherhood of Ram. Now, these are like the elite of the Satanists. They are the highest in the order. They are usually very wealthy individuals, very prominent figures, and they kind of police all the other Satanists. If someone is not obeying the rules, or if someone is talking about their rituals, then usually it's the Brotherhood of the Ram who will go in and dispatch of that person. They are well financed and ensure that the rest of the organization has finances to properly conduct themselves and recruit new members. And they are, like I said, very wealthy, very powerful. Speculation is they're often politicians, very, very, very rich individuals and businessmen. After that, you have the Order of Darkness, and they are basically almost like undercover. They infiltrate churches, and they go after the reverends or the dominies in the churches. And their main goals are to corrupt the church and corrupt the reverend so that the rest of the church is corrupted by what is occurring. And then the last one that you have is the Sons of Satan. And these are just your run-of-the-mill Satanists who participate in the rituals. And that's where you start off at the bottom, and then you work your way up into one of the other orders. Not much is known about Satanic rituals because of the secrecy that is involved. But for example, there was some site in Polokwane that used to be a water reservoir, and instead it had dried up. And basically what happened was that the Satanists had drawn a pentagram on the base of it, and then images of sexual acts along the side. And there was a lot of burnt material in places around the pentagram. So we can assume that there is a lot of burning of candles that is going on. It's usually black or red candles, as well as perhaps a sacrifice that occurs, and then perhaps an orgy or a sexual act that involves the drinking of the sacrificed person's blood. Now, all satanic rituals are said to have 13 steps, because obviously we know 13 is an unlucky number. And during these 13 steps, an altar to Satan is set up. And they basically revolve around that thing. They basically revolve around the satisfaction of human desires. In the end, you basically want to just satisfy your body and satisfy yourself sexually in these rituals. Satanists look forward to satanic rituals. It is seen as a time of great joy for them. And the drinking of blood is perhaps one of the most important forms or things that you do during this ritual, because they believe that your blood holds your life force, and then when you pass away, then energy is transformed from the person who passes away to the person who is drinking or consuming the blood to make them more powerful. And this is a lot where Satanists consider blood to be very important, and they consider human blood to be very important because they believe it can be more powerful than simply animal blood. But they are known to sacrifice both animals and humans. The last thing that I want to talk about is satanic ritual abuse. And this is perhaps the most disturbing because this involves the ritualistic abuse of children. For example, they will often take in foster children and as well as their own children, and they will sexually abuse them from a very young age. We are talking about from ages of 4 or 5 until like their early teens. And they will indoctrinate them into the cult of Satanism. And a lot of this is done through marriages to Satan. And this is often a generational problem. And it goes in families from generations and generations and generations. And this is probably one of the most horrific portions. Now, when the children are released back into their released back to their parents from foster care, it is hopeful that they have instilled the values of Satan in these children, so that when they come back in their teenage years, that they will recruit more children and carry on the cycle of abuse and dedicate more children to Satan. If you enjoyed this content, just please give me a like and a follow, and I will start covering more of the cases that the occult unit in South Africa investigates.